Hello everyone, I hope you're doing really well. Thank you for clicking on my video, and today we're going to be going through a whole pile of eyeshadow looks that I didn't have a chance to film, but I still wanted to show you. I have these little snippets of videos taken from my day, and we're going to talk about the eyeshadow palettes that I use to create those looks so I can, give you guys some ideas and have a video record of all of my looks because that's fun. This is a series called While I Was Out. Today, I believe, is the 16th video in my series, and today I'm showing you 13 looks, including this one. Let's jump right in with today's eyeshadow look, which I just finished doing. I thought about filming it, and then I just wanted to sit and play with eyeshadow and not feel pressured to create content with it. I love to share with you guys, but I never want it to become something that makes me feel stressed, and that's why I did it off camera. But it's a perfect example of what my WeWo While I Was Out series is about. I call it WeWo on the side. What my While I Was About series is all about, because sometimes I don't have a chance to film, or I don't have time, or I just don't wanna, but I still wanna share with you my final looks. So today I used a bunch of things actually. Mainly, I used the Flower Moon palette from Ensley Rain because somebody gave it to me and I've been having fun playing with it, but it's got a lot of shadows in it. Now this is very shimmer heavy, so I think I'm getting to the point after about 5 uses where I feel like I'm kind of getting a pretty decent handle on the palette. But anyway, I used this, but I also have a palette pull-in, which is a project where a palette is randomly drawn from my collection and I work through in consecutive order. So Sorceress Smoke is my palette pull-in. You'll see this popping up a lot in today's looks because this is what I've been working through. So today I used the shade Herbal, which is actually part of my BYOP. And so I had to go to my BYOP, pull out the shade, use it, and then put it back in my BYOP. But I did technically use it and in order, so I only have one more shade to use in this palette, and then I will be drawing a new palette pull-in. I have 2 different blushes on. I started off with Luminoso from Milani, which is a beautiful peach. My outfit is actually kind of cool toned, but the eye looks kind of warm toned. So I started with a warm peachy blush, but then I wanted to not be too different and like warm and then cool for the rest of my look. So I decided to cool it down a bit with the Spring Magic blush palette from Unearthly Cosmetics, and I used this purple and I just dabbed it on top. Now, for me, this palette is fully hard pan, but I'm able to get a light application of blush, which is what I prefer. And because I got it for $8, I'll make do, and I like the finished effect because I'm not ever going to go for some like really heavy blush application. I have 2 colors in my waterline. First, I use this orange from Urenzai, which is the shade 002. My inner corner is kind of an orangey shimmer. It's hard to tell because it's a very small space and it was a very flaky shimmer. So it actually flaked all over my face and didn't stay so much in the inner corner. But I was playing into that orange with an orange waterline, and it was just not quite vibing with me, so then I brought in a dark brown and I put that in the outer half or so and sort of faded it into the orange, which I like much better. On my lips I have a Kaleidos lip clay in the shade Sienna. I love this formula. It feels like when you bite into a quality chocolate truffle and it's kind of cold. This feels cold on the lips when you apply it. It's very moussey. It's very lovely. So that is today's eyeshadow look. I think it's really, really pretty. Very happy with it. I love just to play with the temperatures, bring some warm mattes, bring some cool mattes, bring some warm shimmers, some cool shimmers, and just go to town and have a lot of fun with the colors. So this is look number 1, and I like it. Now, look number 2, I used the Nomad Fuji 5 Lakes palette. I used a ColourPop Creme Gel liner in the shade Boots on my waterline. That's a bright pink kind of color. But I also used their shade Fade Away in my waterline as well. Again, a 2-tone waterline. This palette pull-in was my previous before I got to Sorceress Smoke. I was finishing up the Pretty Chic palette from Colored Rain, so that's the little pink palette you see down there. I think that palette will make 3 appearances today, and then the rest of my palette pull-ins were Sorceress Smoke from Unearthly. Honestly, I kind of loved this look, and that's why I pretty much started today's video with it. It was so striking and it was so fun. I kind of loved the way the colors were just playing together. It was very multi-chromatic, especially with the shimmers that I brought in, and I just thought it was a lot of fun. By the way, I have a whole review on this palette, my most recent ranking. This palette and several of these other ones are featured. The yellows were really good and they made for a great inner corner. Every time I dip in this palette, I want to play with a yellow inner corner. But if you want to hear all of my thoughts on the palette, including shades that are not red or yellow, then just watch that ranking recent. If I remember to, I'll card it up here in the video screen. Also, before I forget, every time I do one of these While I Was Out videos, I have 9 and more. I think this is the first time I've had 13 looks. Usually I have 9 to 12. Anyway, so because this is the 15th or 16th video in the series, there are over 100 looks in the series if you're interested in seeing tons of different eyeshadow looks and just having a quick recap of each one. Check my description box for a While I Was Out playlist. But anyway, moving on to look number 2. I used the Snow Moon palette from Ensley Rain, and I used Champs in my waterline. Champs is from ColourPop. It's a beautiful rich purple color, like a majestic royal purple color. I wanted to go smoky for this look. I just thought it was lovely. It was very simple as well, just a couple of easy mattes and then the dark shimmer on most of the lid space. And true to my style and aesthetic, I tend to do a bright poppy inner corner to just open up my face a little bit, especially if I'm going dark. Per usual, I'm super impressed with the Ensley Rain quality. The mattes are extremely buttery and easy to use. They are just an absolute pleasure to use. Their shimmers are a lot. If that's what you're going for, you can't go wrong. But if you want something a little bit more downplayed or a little less intense, I mean, sometimes Ensley Rain is too intense for me and I have to go with something a bit quieter. But beautiful formula, and I especially love their mattes. And somehow, honestly, as far as the shimmers go, somehow Ensley Rain has figured out how to make a dark shimmer which still reflects light insanely brightly and vibrantly. It's really impressive because most brands, the darker you get with the shimmers, the more dull they become. They might stay sparkly. I know that Adept Cosmetics and Unearthly, they can manage to go a little darker and still stay very sparkly, but not reflect light the way that Ensley Rain does. For look number 4, I used the Sickly Sweet palette from Blend Bunny Cosmetics. I did take a loose pigment from Ensley Rain and I just dabbed that on top. That, I guess, would be their topper shades. They're not really in the palettes, they're in these little pots of loose pigment. And I have the shade, I think, Bay Breeze from ColourPop in my waterline. On my lips, I'm wearing the NYX This Is Milky Gloss in Mint Choco Chip, and I have the Frosting Highlighter palette from Cosmic Brushes. I really liked this look. It was very lightweight and soft, but still super sparkly and just felt very wearable. I kept it pretty light and bright, and I did not do a deep outer corner, which is rather unusual for me. I wanted it to be really lightweight on this day, just easy, no fuss, not too much drama. I do have a bit of a popping inner corner, and the lower lash line made it feel a little bit extra special, but not too over the top. Something about this made me think like a summertime cucumber mint spritzer, and I'm completely okay with that. The Blend Bunny formula is excellent. Really, really, really good mattes and very impactful. Not Ensley Rain impactful, but a little bit more everyday impactful kinds of shimmers. This Sickly Sweet remains my favorite palette from Blend Bunny, and honestly, just a favorite great pastel palette overall. For look number 5, I used the Betty Boop palette from Glamlight, and in my waterline I have a light pink called Fluffy, also from ColourPop. This was my second time using the palette in as many days. I enjoyed the first time I used this palette, which was filmed, by the way. I enjoyed that so much that I used it again the next day, and I wanted to use it again for a third time on the third day, but I forced myself to use something else because I have a lot of palettes to get through and I just want to give all of them a fair shot before I choose favorites. This palette is rather a dark horse of color and tones hidden in pretty obnoxious red packaging, but it's great formula, great quality. Everything that people are saying about this palette, as far as the people that I've watched, are on point. It's really nice. This look reminded me of something I did with the BH Cosmetics Garnet palette. Part of their Birthstone series was at January, but this was easier to achieve and the formula was nicer, even though that was, like, those Birthstone palettes were really nice. But I think that the palette overall, this one is more versatile for size and variety of shades, and I thought that this look was really, really pretty. Okay, now in look number 6, I used the Pat McGrath palette, Moonlit Seduction. I have brown in my waterline, wearing some of the Spring Magic blush palette, again from Unearthly Cosmetics, and the highlighter Star Surfer from Kaleidos. My palette pull-in here, again, was Pretty Chic. These are a bit out of order, but I finished the Pretty Chic palette, and then I brought in Sorceress Smoke, and I'm about to be done that one. This was my second time using the Pat McGrath palette, and I felt very beautiful, very classy, chic. It was effortless to use, and it was just a beautiful and easy look. Not too striking, not too textured. All of the colors just work together. You don't have to think about it. You don't have to sit and analyze what you're going to do, because everything is going to be fine and everything's going to be pretty. I do have a review of this palette as well. Again, my recent ranking video, if you're curious, I'll card it above for you guys. The inner highlight for this palette is, it's not super shimmery, not super satin, not traditional, it's somewhere in the middle. It feels kind of like a cream to powder sort of formula, like what Natasha Denona has. I used it in my inner corner and it did brighten things pretty well. Not quite as much as I wanted, but I think that my tastes tend to lean a little bit less sophisticated, particularly when I'm playing, and I'm so used to playing with my indie shadows. But the Pat McGrath palette was beautiful. The quality was great. And when I did use the inner corner highlight, it felt a little bit softer. It wasn't the brightest, but it made sense with the rest of the palette. And it's just very nice quality. The actual finish and the feel and the texture and everything, I would compare it to Sydney Grace. Now in look number 7, I used the Secret Garden palette from Colored Rain Cosmetics, which they're out of business now. I also used Ensley Rain Flower Moon to get some shimmer because the Secret Garden palette is all matte. So I needed, again, trying things out, testing, reviewing, I needed some shimmer to go with it. And I have the shade Toucan Do It from ColourPop in my waterline, which is a beautiful metallic marigold. I thought that this look was swampy and grungy, kind of like you're a borrower. Do you guys remember the Borrower series, the little people? Like you're someone who's this tall and you're in the very roots, the very base of the grass of a meadow, and you're looking up towards the sky. That's kind of the feeling that I got from this look, and just the overall tones and the colors. I really liked it. It's actually quite similar to today's eyeshadow look. I think today might be a bit warmer in the mattes out here, and more yellowy as well. The Secret Garden palette doesn't have any true yellows. And also because the Secret Garden palette is all matte, the Flower Moon is a perfect companion because almost the entire center row of the Flower Moon palette is green leaning shimmers. So I had plenty of choices. This look I felt was very impactful. I kind of felt like one of the shimmers I used was sort of like a molten sunshine, and that seemed to wake up the more grounded tones of the greeny browny sorts of shades. One of the benefits of an all matte palette is that you don't have prescribed shimmers. Now, of course, you can do whatever you want, grab anything you want from anywhere in your collection, but sometimes we might feel tied to a palette because it's got the mattes, it's got the shimmers, it's got the depth, it's got the highlights. You know, it might have everything you need in one spot. And so an all matte palette is nice because you can then feel a little bit freer to grab any shimmer from anywhere and get something that might be a little bit less matched or less expected. It was just a lot of fun. This look was really pretty. I liked this one a lot. I'm just now paying attention to what I'm wearing today. I haven't given it much thought, honestly. And it's funny because I had put this cardigan on because I was a little bit chilly. We had the temperature around where we live just dropped, plummeted like 40 degrees for a solid week. And so I was chilly and I had socks and I had a little cardigan. But now I'm like, oh, I wonder if I kind of sort of match-ish. And then I remember that my daughter had gotten some food on my shirt, so I'm covering that. Okay, moving on to look number 8, wherein I used the Polar Express palette from Nomad Cosmetics and I put brown in my waterline. This was featured in, again, my ranking video. By this time, I was using Sorcerer's Smoke for my palette Poland, so that's featured in here somewhere. And this was a Halo Eye, but it was actually hard to tell because it was a little bit more monochromatic. I specifically needed to play in the more burgundy wine tones of the Polar Express palette. So I was doing kind of burgundy mattes, and then there was like I think a burgundy shimmer and kind of a goldish shimmer, which I did use on top of the burgundy shimmer, but it was still hard to see. You can see the gold shimmer on the center of my lower lash line. I do remember that I had some creasing with these mattes in this palette, and I think I forgot to mention that in the ranking video for this one. It could also be the primer. I mean, maybe I didn't spread enough. I usually go in kind of light, and I haven't used a glitter glue in ages. So maybe I should do that, and that would deal with the creasing, especially as I get a little older and my fold, especially on this eye, my fold starts to hang lower, and on this eye, it goes a little bit deeper set as well. So with literally the anatomy of my face changing, I might need to switch up my application processes or something. So I can't necessarily say for sure that it wasn't a different factor creating the creasing in that look with those colors, because I don't remember it with the other ones. I thought that this was a good look for a cuddly sort of day. It wasn't too vibrant or crazy. It was sort of cozy, like I wanted to curl up with a book and a blanket and just sort of snuggle, and this look felt like it was a perfect companion for that sort of mood. Here now is look number 9, in which I used the Happy Go Lucky palette from Ensley Rain. I put a ColourPop shade Big Splash in my waterline, which is just a pretty sky blue kind of color. I have the Frosting Highlighter palette from Cosmic Beauty, and I'm wearing the Kaleidos Lip Clay, just like today, except in this video I'm wearing the shade Adobe. Again, palette pull-in was Sorcerer's Smoke, and this was an all matte look except for my inner corner. There are 2 shimmers and 4 mattes in this palette, and the first time I used it was on camera and I didn't really love the look, but that wasn't the palette's fault. That was because I was trying a different style, which wasn't quite up my alley. This look I liked more, and it had been quite some time since I did an all matte look, but I really needed to bring in a little bit of sparkle and there's a shimmer in the palette which looks very blue, but when you use it, it's not actually that blue. So I was trying to pull that out a little bit, which is also why I chose Big Splash for the waterline. But this look was easy. There was no problem building, no problems blending or working together. Everything just seems to make sense together. And given that it's only 6 shades, it's a pretty versatile palette. Also mentioned in my recent rankings. An all matte look sometimes gives me the impression of something that's a little bit more sophisticated and less showy. It's less glitz and glam. It's more somber and mature and responsible. It's also lower fuss, and you don't have to worry nearly as much with about creasing if you have an all matte look. And if you have really great quality mattes like Sydney Grace, like Ensley Rain, like Blend Bunny, you're gonna get a lovely all matte look, which can still be striking and still be dynamic without the hassle or the fallout or needing a glitter glue or the creasing of shimmers. As I said, I liked this look. I was very happy with it, but I'm also happy that I took a little bit of glitter, a little bit of sparkle, and just popped it into that inner corner to wake things up a bit and just be a little bit special. We're getting to the end here. This is now look number 10, in which I used the Geodes palette from What's Up Beauty. I have a light green from ColourPop called Aglow in my waterline, and I used the Frosting Highlighter palette from Cosmic Brushes. Also, Sorceress Smoke as a palette pull-in. I specifically wanted to go smoky in this look because I love the contrast in this palette, but it had been a while since I had used the darker shimmers. And so again, when I have a darker shimmer, I tend to do a really smoky eye because I want to just put it all over the lid and see what it can do and see how dramatic or how impactful I can get with something that's quite dark. So I used the darker shimmers and the darker mattes for this look. I kind of felt like the lower lash line here was sort of a dark thread of shadows, with the green waterline made it feel like leaves popping off of a stem, and that just felt very magical to me. A little unexpected, because a popping, oftentimes I just blend the waterline into whatever's happening on the lower lash line, but I really like it if it's a bit different too. Next time I might carry the lighter shimmer from my inner corner over a little bit more so that it's not as dark, or at least blends in or fades into the darker shimmers a bit better, but that's just personal style. You figure out what you like and it's a little hard to deviate. I thought that this look was a good match for my outfit, and the inner corner seemed to be a perfect match for my earrings. Up next, I'm going to show you 2 different looks using the Dirty Martini palette from Glamlight. Each has different details, and just keep this in mind as we go through. In the first one here, look number 11, I used the Garden of Juvia's palette as well. I have a brown waterline, and I used the Colored Rain blush called Floral. I have my Pretty Sheet palette as a palette pull-in, and I guess I just forgot to take the video for this look, so, we'll do the best we can with a brief picture. For this and the following look, I wanted to use the Dirty Martini palette again to see if I wanted to keep it, because I just brought in Undergrowth, which is formula, packaging, and kind of color story that I'm just leaning more towards these days. So I wanted to play with Dirty Martini more to see if I had outgrown that formula or that color story, see if it was still exciting me, so this look and the next one were with that in mind. I think I've matured out of this palette, and what I mean by that is it had been my favorite green palette for so long because I love green eyeshadow, but over time I found that I also love to play with different temperatures. I love different undertones, and honestly I just like other formulas as well. This is good quality, but for this specific palette, I think that it doesn't have enough variety in undertones for me anymore. It's more like exactly the expected greens, but I want something a bit more. I want greens that have murky undertones, bright undertones, green undertones, yellow undertones, brown undertones, blue undertones, gray undertones. I want variety in the nuance. I want nuance, and I think that the Dirty Martini palette doesn't have the nuance that draws me in anymore. I thought this look was pretty. I did like the little pop of brightness on the center of the lid, as you can see in the picture. Not a great picture, sorry. I don't know why I didn't take a video. Maybe I just was that unexcited about the palette. But let me move on to look number 12, which is also Dirty Martini, as I said. This time I paired it with the Tropicolor palette from Sydney Grace. I have brown in my waterline and the Frosting Highlighter palette, again from Cosmic Brushes. That's a lovely palette. My palette pull-in was Sorceress Smoke, and my video here is also not good, I'm sorry. It was a homeschool day, so I do my eyeshadow really early in the morning, and then we're out all day, and I try to snag a tiny piece of window time with some sun to get a look, like a video with the eye look, but it's usually not very good. I only pulled the Tropicolor palette for an inner corner highlight because there isn't one in Dirty Martini, and there's a beautiful shade in Tropicolor which is called Coconut. It's a lovely kind of satin matte bone to white sort of shade. It's very, very impactful. So I laid that on my full inner corner space, you know, blended it into my skin, and then I took one of the lightest mattes in the Dirty Martini palette, which is light aqua-y kind, or like verdigris sort of color, and I popped that on top of the white. So I had a light base which really was highlighting, and then the Dirty Martini palette on top to bring in, or to tie it more into the look and use one of those shades as an inner corner highlight because the palette doesn't have one. Same comments as before. I like the palette. It was my favorite green for so long, but I think that I've outgrown it. I think I'm ready to pass it along. It just doesn't excite me anymore, honestly. It's good. I have no problems with it. I still recommend it if you like the colors and you like the formula and that's what you're looking for. I think it's a great palette. But I think it's just not my perfect green palette any longer now that I have tried so many others. And to close things out, the 13th and final look in today's video was also using Flower Moon. I put Bae Breeze from ColourPop in my waterline, and I paired this look fully with the Sorceress Smoke palette. So it wasn't just a palette pull-in. I did use my palette pull-in shade, and then I used one or two other shades in the palette as well. So I used the two palettes together. I thought that this was lovely. I really loved the soft pinks and berry tones. I found that they were quite poppy and really impactful. The two formulas together were lovely. Again, the quality of the Insleeve Rain, but Unearthly has my favorite shimmer formula. Most of my lid space is this shade right here. And I just love the formula. The shimmers from Unearthly are, for me, they're perfection. They're lightweight, they're sparkly, they can be opaque. I mean, they are the color that you expect them to be, but they're also shifty, but they're not too thick or too creamy or too emollient or too oily or too creasy or too reflective or too much fallout. They're perfect. I love them so much. But then I did take a peachy gold shimmer, and that's the flash that you might be able to see. I hope you can see it in the video. There's kind of a peachy gold flash on this part of the lid working out towards the darker mattes. So it brought in something a little bit different, a little interesting, because there was a little bit of gold and orange and peachy-ish sorts of tones in there. So it brought a different twist to the look, which I loved. I think that's all the looks that I had to share with you guys. I hope you have enjoyed this video. I've numbered the looks so that we can chat about them specifically in the comments. So do let me know which ones you like the most. I don't know. I really liked the Sickly Sweet look. I really liked the Secret Garden with Flower Moon, which was very much like today's look, just not quite as yellow. I really liked the Dirty Martini. I thought that was beautiful, beautiful formula. Love the shine. It wasn't pink, but it wasn't red. It was somewhere in the middle, and that palette can give me that. And I really liked the last one with the Unearthly shine all over the lid. It was, that's like a happy spot for me. It's the Unearthly formula. But anyway, I would love to hear what your favorites are. Tell me in the comments below. Do you like the formulas or the color stories? Do you have any of these palettes? Do you ever get inspiration? Honestly, tell me if you ever get inspiration from these videos. Because as I said, if no one watches my videos, it's fine. For me, this is kind of a video diary. I love to share the hobby with you. I love to chat with you and show you guys what I'm doing. But I also like to go back and look and see, oh, that's right, I did this with those two palettes and it was fun. So maybe I could try to pair them again, or inspire myself to grab two things that don't seem to work and see if I can make them work. That's actually the reason I started an Instagram account, was just an eyeshadow look log. So I can scroll through and see what I've done. I almost never repeat a look. Because I have so many gorgeous options and unending ideas. I feel like repeating a look is like a waste of a chance to do something different and new, which I might love even more. So anyway, I would love to chat with you guys. Of course, do let me know in the comments what you think, and be sure to check the description box for my While I Was Out playlist, where you will find, as I said, over 100 other eyeshadow looks in today's exact format. Thank you for being here. Perhaps you'll consider liking and subscribing before you go if you enjoyed today's content and you want to see more. I look forward to chatting with you in my next video and sharing more eyeshadow with you guys. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
It's not technically a prayer, but teach us, Almighty Father, to consider this solemn truth, as we should do, that we may feel the importance of every day and every hour as it passes, and earnestly strive to make a better use of what thy goodness may yet bestow on us, that we have done of the time past.
Was that one of her books, or was that like memoirs or letters or something written by her?
I don't know. It just says Jane Austen.
It's a good quote.